She smirked as she slid the divorce papers across the table, thinking she'd won. Her eyes said, "You're nothing without me." I signed in silence. But when the judge read my net worth out loud, that smirk vanished. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. And don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing this video with your loved one. You won't want to miss this. My name's Alex. I met Jessica at a friend's birthday party 6 years ago. She walked in like she owned the room, confident, smiling, and dressed in this simple red dress that made her stand out without trying. I remember thinking, she's way out of my league. But somehow, she talked to me first, said I looked like someone who didn't belong there, and she meant it as a compliment. I laughed. She laughed. That's how it started. In the beginning, she was sweet, thoughtful. She'd bring me lunch at work, surprise me with handwritten notes, sit beside me while I coded for hours, and say she didn't mind. I thought I hit the jackpot. We moved in together within a year. She said she loved my focus, my ambition, even if I was just a software guy trying to build something from nothing. But little things started to bother me, not at first, but over time. She'd joke that I wore the same shoes too often, or say, "One day, you'll make enough to take me to Paris." I'd laugh it off, thinking she didn't mean anything by it. I didn't want to make a big deal out of a comment. Everyone jokes, right? Then came the comparisons. Her dad was in finance. Her brother had just opened another restaurant in Miami. Her cousin owned a vineyard in California. I didn't come from money. My parents were school teachers. I paid for college through scholarships and side gigs. Jessica would sometimes say, "You wouldn't understand. We grew up very differently." At first, it was just a fact. Later, it felt more like a warning. We still had good moments. Movie nights. Vacations. We'd sit on the couch and plan what our dream house would look like. She said she wanted marble floors, a walk-in closet bigger than our entire apartment, and a pool shaped like a piano. I didn't care about all that. I just wanted to build something that mattered and take her with me. But the more I worked, the more she complained. Said I was married to my laptop. She started going out more with her friends. Nights turned into weekends. Then she started traveling without me. Said she needed space. The support I felt in the beginning? Gone. Replaced by eye rolls, long sighs, and silence. I was still trying to build my app, working 12-hour days, thinking it was temporary. That once things took off, she'd come back around. She didn't. What she did instead? Well, that's what you're here for, isn't it? Because what came next was worse than I imagined. But it was also the start of something she never saw coming. It started small. That's what makes it hard to spot. A little shift here, a slight change there. Nothing obvious enough to call out. But once you're deep in it, it's already too late. One night, we were out with some of her friends at a rooftop bar downtown. I didn't know most of them, but she insisted I come. I thought it was a chance to spend time together, just us. But I was wrong. She spent the evening glued to her phone, laughing with her old college roommate about some vacation they were planning. I sat there sipping club soda, while the others talked about hedge funds and luxury condos. Then one of them asked me what I did, and before I could speak, Jessica leaned in and said, "He's still figuring it out." It was a joke, I guess. At least that's how everyone laughed. But my stomach sank. I smiled because I didn't want to embarrass her. That was the first time I felt like I was shrinking next to her. After that, it happened more often. At dinners, she'd interrupt me mid-sentence. When I tried to talk about my work, she'd cut in with, "Let's not bore everyone with code stuff." Or worse, "He's building some mystery app that's going to change the world someday." I noticed the spending, too. Designer bags, new shoes, expensive candles that cost more than our monthly Wi-Fi bill. She started getting packages daily. When I brought it up, she said, "Don't act poor, Alex. It's embarrassing." I told her we needed to save. She rolled her eyes and walked away. She didn't stop with me either. She started pulling me away from the people who grounded me. My best friend, Marcus, used to drop by on weekends. We'd grab wings and catch up. One day, Jessica said, "Why does he need to be here again? Doesn't he have his own place?" So I stopped inviting him. My sister, who lived one city over, wanted to visit. Jessica said we were too busy and told me to cancel. When I called my mom, Jessica would sigh loud enough for me to hear from across the room. She never said don't call them. She didn't need to. I just stopped. I started feeling like I was always wrong. If I forgot to do something, she made it sound like I was careless. If I tried to help, she'd say I was in the way. She had a tone, never yelling, never screaming, just sharp. Like every word was a needle. "Are you always this slow? You can't be serious." Wow, this is basic, Alex. Sometimes, I'd catch myself apologizing without knowing what for. I'd walk into a room and feel like I was interrupting something, even if we were alone. There was no physical fight, no obvious cruelty. That would have been easier to name. Instead, it was like trying to sleep with the sound of dripping water, tiny, constant, and impossible to ignore. She'd say things like, "You don't even know how lucky you are, do you?" And the scary part? I started to believe her. I began thinking, maybe she's right. Maybe I'm the problem. That's the thing about emotional manipulation. It doesn't come all at once. It wraps around you slowly, like fog, until you can't see your way out. And I didn't, not then. Not for a long time. But one night, something cracked. I caught a look in her eyes. Not anger. Not frustration. Just boredom. Like she didn't see me at all anymore. I remember thinking, when did I stop being a person to her? It was a Friday night, and I was supposed to be working late. At least, that's what she thought. My meetings ended early, so I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe pick up her favorite Thai food, head home, and for once, just have a quiet night in. God knows we needed one. When I pulled into the garage, the lights in the house were on, music playing loud enough that I could hear it before I even opened the door. Laughter echoed from the living room. It was that high-pitched, too loud kind of laugh, the kind people do when they're showing off. I paused before stepping inside. Then I heard glasses clink. Someone popped open a bottle, the cork bouncing off the ceiling and landing with a thud. That was followed by cheers. It didn't sound like just a casual hangout. It felt festive. I eased the door open and stepped in quietly. They hadn't heard me. Jessica was standing in the center of the room, wearing a black silk robe, barefoot, with her hair curled like she was posing for a magazine. 3 of her friends were there. 2 I recognized, 1 I didn't. The new one looked younger, barely out of college, maybe. "You're glowing," one of them said. Jessica twirled the champagne flute in her hand. "I should be. I'm about to be free." Another one asked, "Is he still clueless?" She rolled her eyes. "He thinks we're just going through something." She mimicked air quotes. "Honestly, I don't even think he'll fight it. He's so passive it's painful." They all laughed again. I stood in the hallway, hidden behind the wall, my heart thudding in my ears. I could have walked in. I could have shouted, but something stopped me. Maybe I needed to hear it. Maybe I already knew. Then came the line that cut through everything. "I mean, he's got nothing," she said, laughing. "No savings, no backbone. Just his dumb little app that hasn't made a single dollar. After the divorce, I'll be back on the market, with everything." Someone whistled. Another said, "As you should, girl." I didn't hear the rest. I backed away, quietly closed the door behind me, and sat in the garage in the dark for a long time. The food I bought was still in the passenger seat, getting cold. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even feel angry, just numb. Like someone had turned the volume down on my whole life. She hadn't just fallen out of love. She had written the final chapter, signed her name at the bottom, and was already planning the sequel without me. But that night did something to me. Something subtle. A shift. It was like a light clicked on in a room I didn't realize was dark. I had been trying so hard to save something that was already gone. Worse, something that had never been real in the first place. And right there, sitting in the silence of that garage, I decided I wouldn't be the fool in her story. Long before Jessica ever handed me those papers, long before the smirks and the insults, I had learned how to disappear in plain sight. By day, I was just another guy in a hoodie at a cafe, typing away on a laptop, sipping cold coffee. To her, that's all I was. Just a quiet man tinkering with ideas no one else understood. She never asked questions, and I never offered answers. That worked perfectly for me. The truth was, I had a second life she never knew existed. Years ago, before we even met, I launched a small mobile app on a whim. It started as a side project, an anonymous platform that let people post messages based on location. It didn't go viral. It didn't trend. But it caught the eye of a private investor group who saw potential in the back-end tech I'd built. They didn't want the app. They wanted the architecture. Quietly, we signed a deal. I never celebrated, never bought a flashy car or upgraded my wardrobe. I kept driving the same 10-year-old sedan and wore discount shoes. The money went into a Delaware LLC with no public ties to my name. Then another shell company. Then into silent partnerships with a few promising startups. The cash never sat, it moved. Always moving. Always invisible. Jessica once joked that I was all theory, no profit. I let her think that. The less she knew, the safer it was. My bank account, the one she could see, always looked modest. My spending habits? Boring. She thought I was a man obsessed with potential, never payoff. What she didn't realize was that I had quietly protected every dollar, every asset, from the very thing she was planning. I had built a fortress with no front door. The house we lived in? Rented in her name. The furniture? Bought on her credit cards. The vacation she posted about last year? Paid with points she never knew, came from a separate corporate card tied to one of my holding firms. I wasn't playing poor. I was staying quiet. I'd seen what money did to people, how it turned curiosity into greed, how it made people rewrite history to justify what they took. So I buried it. I wrapped it in silence and let her believe whatever she wanted. While she mocked me to her friends, I was quietly consulting for 3 AI startups under NDA. While she bragged that she'd be walking away with everything, I knew she wouldn't touch a cent. Not legally. Not ever. The world she thought she owned? That was never the real one. She never once asked me who I really was. And now, sitting in court, she wouldn't recognize the man she tried to strip bare. Because the truth wasn't hiding. It was waiting. After that night in the garage, I stopped reacting and started watching. She had no idea what changed in me, and I didn't show her. I still made her coffee in the mornings, still let her win every argument, still nodded when she said things that used to cut deep. But I wasn't absorbing it anymore. I was storing it, cataloging, preparing. The first person I contacted was a retired divorce attorney my dad once worked with. Quiet guy, sharp mind, no social media footprint. I didn't ask for a referral. I went straight to his house. We talked on the back porch, no phones, no names. He gave me 2 numbers, one for a forensic accountant, another for a private investigator. I paid both in cash. The accountant showed me how to track patterns in our joint accounts. Little things Jessica thought I'd never noticed. She'd been using our shared card for gifts she never gave me, restaurant bills I'd never seen, spa visits she never mentioned. The numbers told a story louder than words. Every month, she'd drain just a bit more, just below the threshold that might trigger a red flag. The investigator handled the rest. I didn't even ask for photos, just facts. Dates. Times. Who she was with, where they met, how often. It wasn't just one guy. There were 3. One of them, she visited while telling me she was at a women's retreat. Another, she brought to a hotel we'd once stayed at together. That one stung a little more than I expected. I recorded everything legally. Every conversation where she hinted at her plan. Every time she slipped up and revealed more than she meant to. I learned to play dumb. I kept my face neutral. I let her think I was spiraling, that I was too broken to protect myself. The more pathetic I acted, the more careless she became. One night, she told me she had a friend who knew a great divorce attorney. Just in case, she said, laughing into her wine. I nodded and asked if she thought he'd go easy on me. She said probably not. Another time, she left her phone open on the couch while she was in the shower. Messages from her friends, screenshots of account balances, lists of assets, talks about what she'd take. She didn't even bother hiding it anymore. She thought I was too blind to see what she was building. I kept a journal, paper, not digital. Every day, I wrote down what she said, how she said it, where she went, who she spoke to. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. I began backing up financial documents. Copies of receipts, account statements, company contracts, all tucked away in encrypted folders. My legal team, 5 people in total, all operating under strict confidentiality, met with me weekly in an office she didn't know existed. I wasn't waiting to be rescued. I was laying bricks. She saw a man unraveling, but I was building something behind that silence, something with sharp edges. It was a Thursday afternoon when she finally made her move. I was at work, tucked in a quiet corner of a co-working space I rented under a different name. Nothing flashy, just a desk, a chair, and a laptop. It was where I met with clients, wrote code, handled things she never knew existed. That day, I was debugging a payment feature for one of the apps I'd invested in when I saw the front desk girl waving an envelope. "Someone dropped this off for you," she said, smiling like it might be a love letter. It wasn't. Inside was a manila folder with her lawyer's logo stamped across the top. On top of the divorce papers was a small pink sticky note. Her handwriting, curved, neat, casual. "Don't worry, I'll be gentle." Smiley face, Jess. I stared at it for a while, then placed it carefully back into the folder. No surprise, no panic. Just confirmation. I didn't respond, didn't text, didn't call. I finished my work, packed my things, and went home like it was any other day. She was already out for the night. Later that evening, I found out she'd been preparing for more than just paperwork. A mutual friend, one of the few people who hadn't picked a side, forwarded me screenshots from a WhatsApp group I didn't even know existed. It was all Jessica and her inner circle. The kind of group chat people make when they want to talk freely behind someone's back. There she was, screenshotting the papers she'd served, captioning it with, "Finally did it. Poor guy thinks he's getting the house. LOL. Another message. I might frame that sticky note. That's art. And the one that hit harder than the rest. He's gonna fold. No fight left in him. He doesn't have the spine, let alone the money." The screenshots went viral among our small social circle. People I hadn't spoken to in months suddenly knew everything, or at least her version of it. I was painted as the dull, broke husband who finally got dumped by the woman who had outgrown him. People who used to invite me to weddings and barbecues stopped returning texts. Mutual friends took sides quietly. Some even laughed along in the group chat. One of them wrote, "Let her have her moment. He's not the kind of guy who wins these things." Funny thing is, they were right about one part. I didn't fight back. Not in the way they expected. When the final version of the papers arrived, delivered formally this time by courier, I didn't delay. I flipped through every page, signed where I needed to, and didn't change a single clause. She had asked for the house, the car, a monthly support sum, and full rights to her own assets. I gave her everything, and I smiled while signing. Not because I was happy, not because I was defeated, because the real game had never been in those papers. It was already in motion, far beyond anything she knew. The courtroom smelled like old wood and cold coffee, sterile, quiet, heavy. She walked in like it was her show. Jessica wore a tailored black dress, heels sharp enough to puncture egos, and a smirk that hadn't left her face in weeks. She didn't glance at me, not once. Her lawyer walked just behind her, carrying a folder like it already held the winning ticket. I sat at the same table, just a few feet away, next to my attorney, Lydia. She stayed calm, hands folded neatly, eyes ahead. We didn't speak. There was nothing left to prepare. Everything was already in place. Jessica took the stand like she belonged there. She crossed her legs slowly, folded her hands in her lap, and tilted her head with that perfect performance of grace and disappointment. Her lawyer, a confident man in an expensive suit, began his routine. He told the judge how Jessica had supported me financially, how she had covered our lifestyle, how she had funded the vacations, paid the bills, carried the burden of a marriage while I chased unrealistic dreams with no return. He walked the court through her bank records, payments she made, cards she held, statements designed to suggest I'd lived off her generosity without contributing. She's not asking for anything unreasonable, Your Honor, the lawyer said, glancing over his shoulder at me. She's just asking for a fair outcome, one that reflects the reality of this marriage. Jessica turned her head, met my eyes for half a second, and there it was, that little smile she wore like a crown. Confident, certain. I said nothing. Lydia said nothing. Then the judge, an older man with silver hair and a sharp, dry voice, leaned forward from behind the bench. He adjusted his glasses and said, I've reviewed both sets of disclosures, but I'm not seeing any mention of deferred assets, unvested equity, or private holding. Are those not present in this case? Jessica's lawyer looked confused for a moment, then quickly said, Your Honor, to our knowledge, the respondent holds no significant financial interest. He's been financially dependent for the duration of the marriage. The judge tapped a pen against the file. Mr. Rivers, do you dispute this? That's when Lydia stood. Your Honor, she said, calm and clear, we've submitted a supplemental financial disclosure packet this morning. It includes detailed documentation of Mr. Rivers' business holdings, silent partnerships, and interests in 3 separate trust entities, all acquired legally during the marriage and verified by independent auditors. The air changed. Jessica turned slowly, fully now, her eyes locking on mine. The color in her face shifted, ever so slightly. Her lawyer began flipping papers, mumbling something about not having received it. The judge held up a hand. We'll pause here. I'll need time to review this thoroughly. If your documentation checks out, and I assume it does, this dramatically alters the financial landscape of these proceedings. Jessica's hands twitched slightly in her lap. Her nails tapped the wood of the table, slow, nervous, mechanical. She had come dressed for victory, but the ground beneath her had already been pulled away. The judge called us back to session late in the afternoon. The energy in the room had shifted. Jessica looked smaller in her seat, her shoulders no longer squared, her fingers twitching slightly on the tabletop. Her lawyer sat stiffly beside her, silent, sweating through his collar. Lydia didn't waste time. She stood with quiet precision and handed a final document packet to the clerk. No build-up, no speeches, just numbers. Cold, clear, devastating. The judge reviewed it in silence, eyes scanning page after page. The room was so quiet I could hear the tick of the wall clock. Every pair of eyes, hers, her friends behind us, the small group of observers, watched the judge's expression. Finally, he cleared his throat. What we have here, he said slowly, is a comprehensive breakdown of the respondent's holding. 3 functioning business entities, 2 corporate trust instruments, private licensing agreements, and intellectual property tied to an acquisition dated within the marriage. Jessica blinked slowly. She looked like she hadn't heard correctly. Her lawyer leaned over to whisper, but she brushed him off. Combined, the judge continued, these holdings place Mr. Rivers' net worth at a figure considerably higher than what was originally represented by either party in earlier filing. There it was. A low murmur spread across the room, half disbelief, half confusion. Jessica sat frozen, lips slightly parted, like she was waiting for someone to say it was a mistake, like the numbers couldn't be real. She shook her head once, but no one was looking at her now. The judge raised a sheet of paper. In reviewing Mrs. Rivers' sworn statement and financial disclosures, I find clear contradictions between her testimony and the realities of this case. There is also evidence of misrepresentation concerning marital contributions and intent to conceal expenditures. Her lawyer stood to object, but the judge cut him off with a firm wave of the hand. I've heard enough. He adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Jessica. You painted your husband as a dependent, unambitious partner while seeking entitlement to assets you believed didn't exist. But now that those assets have been revealed and protected legally outside community property, you are entitled to none of them. Jessica's expression cracked. Her jaw tightened, eyes glassy now, mouth twitching like she wanted to say something but couldn't form the words. The judge's final words were plain and sharp. Due to falsified claims and lack of transparency, your petition for spousal support is denied. Your request for asset division is denied. This court finds no basis for further distribution. Jessica didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there in front of everyone in complete silence, stripped of the last illusion of control she thought she had. All the laughter, all the group chats, all the clever little digs, none of them helped her now. And I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The silence said everything. She caught up to me in the courthouse parking lot. Her heels clicked unevenly against the pavement, and for the first time in years, she looked unsure of herself. "Alex, wait," she called out breathless. "Can we just talk?" I stopped by my car but didn't turn around. She stepped in front of me, eyes wide, voice trembling. "I made mistakes. I know that now. But we were good once. Can't we try again?" I looked at her, really looked at her. The same woman who once smirked over divorce papers now stood shattered in designer heat. "No," I said calmly. "You didn't want love. You wanted power. But I never needed you to shine." Her lip trembled. She said nothing. I opened my door, got in, and started the engine. She stood there, frozen, arms wrapped around herself like they could hold her together. As I pulled away, I glanced once in the mirror. She was still standing there, alone in the fading light. No cameras. No crowd. No control. Just her. And nothing left. Do you think I made the right call by walking away from Jessica for good? Or should I have given her another shot? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your take. And if you enjoy stories like mine, hit subscribe and turn on notifications.